Good afternoon and welcome to Find Your Sparkle with Jen, where you'll be inspired, informed, and influenced. I'm Jennifer Stewart, owner of Jazz Potential and creator of Find Your Sparkle. And today I am extremely excited to have with us Anne Bérubé, who is a Ph.D. She's also a Hay House author, which is pretty amazing. And she's a spiritual teacher and mentor. And she has an uncommon ability to share her story and the insights in a way that awaken all inner wisdom in others. She helps people free themselves from the societal and parental conditioning that is holding them back from realizing the highest calling of her soul. Her book, Be, Feel, Think, Do, which I recently finished, published by Hay House in 2017, is absolutely amazing. Anne leads transformational seminars and workshops all around the world. And through these, she's helped thousands of individuals discover inner freedom and a connection to their own unique source of sustainable happiness. And of course, we can all use a little more happiness. She has a lot of signature workshops that include Embodied Leadership, Come Home to Your Soul, Revelations, the Celestial Sessions, and Happy Sessions. In 2007, driven to share her experience with others, Anne co-founded Soul Tribe Live, a social enterprise that aims to amplify the voices of inspiring, emerging, and accomplished thought leaders, creators, and healers, and support healing and transformation by gathering people through live experiences. She's also shared the stage with some of my heroes and people that I would love to share a stage with, including, of course, Dr. Wayne Dyer, Deepak Chopra, Elizabeth Gilbert, James Van Praagh, Anita Moorjani, Gabrielle Bernstein, and a whole other bunch of people. You're a lifelong learner, and that is obvious through your official education. You've got a Bachelor of Education, Master of Arts, and a Ph.D. in Comparative French and Francophone literatures from the Université Bordeaux, 3 in France. And in addition, you've studied lots and lots of other things to help people. And that's essentially your goal in life, is to help people really live their purposeful soul life. So it is an honor to have you here, Anne. Welcome.
Oh, Jennifer, it's so good to be here with you. Thank you for having me.
It really is a pleasure. And we were talking just before we started the interview about Wayne Dyer, who's been a mentor of mine literally since I've been 20 years old. And one of the things that I'm so blessed for you, because a few years ago, you actually brought Wayne to Moncton, New Brunswick. And I bought myself and my daughter tickets to go see him and meet him. And it was one of the highlights of my life. And then he passed away very shortly after that. And it was just, it left a big hole. So that was kind of when I knew that you and I were going to someday meet. And it's been, I think, 6 years now, hasn't it? Almost.
Yes.
6.
Yeah, that was 2015 when he came to Moncton, just about 4 months before he passed away in August, May, June, July, August. Yeah, 3 months. And it was, everybody was surprised because he was feeling himself and saying himself how he was in the best health of his life. And the way you remember in Moncton, how he was teaching, he was so grounded and it felt like he was channeling. So it was different than his old talks where he's more entertaining and he's talking to people. This felt more like he was holding us in this channeling space, and it was powerful. Yeah, it's powerful. And we are so lucky we got to see him a few months before he passed.
Oh my goodness. It really was an awakening for me at that particular time. And when he passed away, I literally felt like I had lost a best friend. I cried, and we were talking about this. The emotions that come up, but I think I'm so thankful that he's left all these teachings for us and that we can access them, and that he's such a spiritual being. Like, we can connect with him. And I think that's why we're here today. So
absolutely. He made himself available right away after his passing and to everyone. And my husband makes a joke. He says he pulled a Jesus move. He just he went over on and he was excited. He was really looking forward to what was the next phase of his journey. And it's clear to me that he's still a teacher. but from the other side. And it, if people have a connection with him, even if it's just through his books or through his podcast, he's right there. People just have to ask.
It is so true. Now, can you talk a little bit about that? Because I know some people who are listening are thinking, what are you talking about? That sounds a little bit woo-woo and, out there. But we know it's true. And I mean, there's lots of different experiences, and you talk about some of them in your book. But just for the naysayers or the people who aren't really sure, can you talk a little bit about that in your experience?
Yes, well, I think we know this now, like from the quantum science and from epigenetics, that we exist in multi-dimensions, that we're not just what we see and what we feel and what we hear. There's so much more going on in different frequencies around us and within us. And so this phase after this human life is just another frequency that we can choose to tap into or not. And so, there's mediums and there's psychics who tap into deceased loved ones, and that's one frequency. But when someone like Wayne Dyer passes away, it's more of a frequency of divine love, and it's a consciousness, almost like an ascended master consciousness. And so it's accessible to everyone. And really, Jennifer, it's never not there. It's just a choice. Most of the time we're up in our brains and we're in our minds and we're just on automatic pilot, kind of going through the motions of our days. We don't remember often enough during our day who we truly are and what's available to us. So if we can tap into that dimension, which I access and everyone can access through their hearts, deep breaths, connection within, feeling the heart, even if it aches, whatever the experience is, that's a different dimension. And that's the dimension where you will see loved ones, especially the ones that are in the realm of this higher consciousness, connect with you. And, Wayne, before he passed away, when we were in Montreal, right before Moncton, he had a session with a photographer who could see orbs on his pictures. And he photographed, and I write this in my book, he photographed Wayne when he was sitting on his bed, and he says, think about your mom who just passed away a couple of years before, and he missed her greatly. And as he thinks about his mom, there's a big orb that appears like on the top of his head and on the photo. And I have that photo, like it's pretty magical. And then he said to Wayne, okay, now think of your mom, but with joy and fondness and love. And the orb on the photo was even bigger. And so to me, it tells me how the language of spirit is love and light and joy. So when you are tapped into your own gratitude and joy, they can hear you, and there's a direct connection, and you can communicate with them.
I absolutely love that. And one of the things that I do to ground myself if I need to have a moment, and this is one of the things that Wayne talked about at that last presentation was, I am love, I am light, I am one, I'm connected, we're all connected. And I think at first I kind of resisted the whole, like I am God, I am one. I resisted that part, but the more that I became open and kind of delved into that, the more I realized that, we so are all connected. And it's just, it's when we can accept and acknowledge that we don't have to understand how everything works and how everything is, but to have that faith and acceptance, it's a really big game changer.
It is. And I think it's a radical self-love, because when you accept fully that you are God, right? Whatever the word you want to use. But God, I grew up Catholic. So God, I actually left that idea for a long time and then came back to it as the creator, as the consciousness and the source of everything that is unconditional love. And so when I say to myself, I am God, that's an act of self-love. And that's not easy to accept, that because a lot of people, and I'm sure a lot of your listeners are of service, they're givers, they're empaths, they're very open with people, and they help people and they guide people, or they're used to being of service, and they're not used to directing that love towards themselves, right? And that was definitely the case for me, is we end up at a point where we are burning out because we give so much. And so to turn that love towards ourselves and to really accept that kind of love, that I am the creator, It's not always easy, but when you
No,
do accept it, it changes everything. It changes everything. It's such a healing experience.
it really is. I mean, I can recall the moment that I actually accepted that. And like you, I have, my divine team, I call it, and it's, it's, to me, it's everything is, it's all the same, but we're connected. So whatever makes you comfortable. But I'm kind of like, okay, God, creator, source, universe, everybody, let's all come together, team. And then my divine team with angels and guides and spirit guides and ancient teachers and masters. It's really, when you do that, and this is what sometimes people have a little bit of a challenge to, I think, to sit, to be comfortable to do that. And when you learn to do it, it does change your world. It does make things easier to take. You do look at what is around you and be more present and engaged in what's happening. What kind of, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say quickly, I think a lot of the people who have a hard time doing that is because they probably had someone who withheld love from them when they were younger or in their life. And then they think, well, I can't, if I love myself that much, maybe I'll be like that person that's so self-centered and that is not, able to. So we worry that we'll be egocentric and it will be narcissist. But if you're actually asking yourself those questions, you are not. You're
Right.
not a narcissist. You are not someone who is going to withhold love. You're actually just allowing yourself to deepen your love.
And that is a great point. I can remember years ago when I started doing some workshops around self-love and self-care, I had a group of women, and they were older women, and they actually, and it's the era, the way that they were brought up. And a couple of them said, that's all very selfish. Everything that you're talking about is really selfish. So I thought, well, this is an interesting opportunity to, you want to kind of help people to grow, but people have to be open to change and hearing change. So to get them to believe that that is an act of service for others when you are looking after yourself. It's like that analogy on the plane, when the mask drops, put it on your face first before you help others. So that, I find, is a really good analogy. But it's, again, it can take you out of your comfort zone and takes a lot of work. Do you have experience with, is there I guess, a tip that you can have for those people who may be old school that could help them to be more open to what self-care and love is?
Absolutely. And I think that, first of all, you have to be clear on your intention. If your intention is to stay where you are, and growth and transformation is not part of your prerogative or your desire, then we can't go anywhere, right?
That's a really good point.
So that's okay. I love you. You do your thing here,
Yeah.
and I'll do my thing here, and that's fine. But if someone comes to you and say, I'm stuck and I want freedom, the only way for growth and transformation is to deepen self-love. It really, really is. And one of the things we have misunderstood is empathy. And so, I make the difference between embodied empathy and disembodied empathy. Disembodied empathy is when you put yourself in someone else's shoes and you feel their emotions and you take it on. And for empaths and highly sensitive people, which is a lot of people now, because the more, the planet evolves, the more these sensitive souls come to the planet. And so you will drain yourself and you will die. Like you will shrivel up and die. So do you want to find your power? Some people, they might not. They might want to go and be a martyr. That is part of their path, and that's totally okay. But if someone comes to you or comes to me and say, I really want to find my power back, then let's look at embodied empathy, where I stand in my light and my love for myself. First and foremost, I understand your suffering and I stand in reverence for the beauty that you are and for the potential you can be. So therefore, I'm not looking at the problem you're presenting to me. I'm in reverence to the light that is behind the problem. That way you won't drain yourself and you'll have all the energy in the world, and the person in front of you will also find their power.
I love that. We're going to continue our conversation, but we're going to have a quick break. You're listening to CIOE 97.5 FM, and we'll be right back. Welcome back. Just before break, Anne was talking about empathy and the two different kinds. So Anne, can you talk a little bit more about that for the embodied empathy? Because I know people often think about the disembodied, but I think people need to hear more what you mean by that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that there's a misunderstanding that when we are of service, that we need to drain ourselves and we need to give everything we've got. But like you mentioned, like we, put our mask on first, that's radical soul love that is required to happen for you to be in your full power and feel energized and feel enthusiastic about your day and about what you're doing. So embodied empathy is that as I stand in my body, so what I mean by that is I am in direct, intimate contact with the inner field of my body. I'm not in my thoughts, I'm not in my worries, I'm not in my ego, but I am in the sensing field of my body. And when I'm there, I'm in the present moment. And when I am there with my attention in my deep, deep breath, I love myself. Attention and breath is love for ourselves. It really, really is. So when I'm there, I can only stand in reverence for the person in front of me because I'm not outside of myself and into that person. I'm in me and our lights are meeting. So the person in front of me might be feeling completely drained or completely out of sort. They might even feel like they're suffering. But if I stand in this light that I am, I understand that they're suffering, but I also know that there's so much more than that. And that's what I hold them in, is this potential, and I hold their light. So it's very different, very different.
And the energy that you have when you do that is definitely a lot better, and it draws in people as opposed to when we take on the negative energy from others and stand for, like you say, stand your ground for yourself and who you are. And that can help to better positively influence people as well.
Absolutely,
So,
because there's no sense in spiraling and both spiraling into the suffering, right? Yeah.
Exactly. And I think, well, awareness is the first thing. And a lot of times people don't understand that there is a different way. So becoming aware that, you don't have to be taken away with those negative thoughts. It reminds me of, the title of your book, Be, Feel, Think, Do, right? Because can you talk a little bit about how we typically, as a society, are versus doing what you're advocating for here, which makes a huge difference.
Yeah, we're used to doing the reverse, which is totally how I used to live. And so we start the day, by thinking about our to-do list, right? It's the first thing that kind of pops into our minds. What do I have to do today? And then we go about our days mostly up in our heads, and we go about our days on automatic pilot, out of habit, without really thinking or without even stopping to ask ourselves why we do what we do. Do we even want to do what we do? And is it really in alignment with who we really are? But we were trained to be up here in our heads, to be away from the abstract, more sensing, more emotional, more spiritual aspect of ourselves, which is in our body below the neck. And so, Bruce Lipton says in his book called The Biology of Belief, which is kind of a groundbreaking book around epigenetics. He says that the cells can't be in protection mode and in growth mode at the same time. So you can't protect yourself and grow. So if you keep at bay all these negative emotions and you say, no, I don't want to feel that, then you also keep at bay the good and the peace and the happiness that's available to you. You can't be selective like that. So being is something we don't love to do, right? Feeling and being, it's uncomfortable. We prefer to be numb.
Right.
But if we can bring our attention to a deeper place in our body, and I usually talk about the base of the spine or the lower belly, there is a little bit more space, more grounding, more stillness, more calm there. So bringing our attention and our breath into the lower parts of our body, this is where being is. Simply being, nothing to do, nowhere to go, just being here, right now with my breath and my attention and with you. So I am sharing this space with you because I'm in myself. It's counter instinctual, but it is so intuitive. We feel each other from this place much more than when we're up here. So then I reverse the order. I start with B, and then I feel, and feelings are not as overwhelming because I'm grounded. And then my thoughts are more creative. They're not the same old from the day before. And then my actions are spontaneous. And it's a beautiful dance between my soul, my feelings, my emotions, my thoughts, my words, and my actions.
It's beautiful, and it makes a complete difference. Can you talk a little bit about the difference between when you lived your old way versus now, and the change that has happened for you?
Absolutely. So I had a car accident when I was 23, and I had a near-death experience. And in the accident, I saw my life, the one I was meant to live, the one I came to live, but not the one I was actually living. And so I saw like a movie in front of my mind's eyes, everybody that was in my life, the things I did, who I love, who loved me. But I felt, Jennifer, this incredible amount of love inside. And it was the love I've never experienced before. Unconditional love was not something I'd learned from my family of origin.
Yeah.
They did the very best they could, but that was not one thing that they were able to pass on. So when I woke up the next day, I promised myself that I would find a way to merge those two lives. And it started with self-love. The first step was, in order for me to know that I'm deserving of this life that I witnessed, I need to learn how to love myself first. And I can't do that in a relationship with someone else. I have to do it with myself first. And from there, and it took 5, then 10 years to really come to a place where I knew I was on my path. So it's not an overnight thing. It's a choice of making one step at a time every day, coming home, remember what that feels like, and healing. Oh, lots of tears, lots of breakthrough and breakdowns, Jennifer, like through the years. But all
that's
to,
part of it.
I know, all to shed layers and feel so much more freedom inside myself and know without a shadow of a doubt who I am.
That is amazing. I know for myself, I've been on a personal journey pretty much, well, as long as I can remember. And one of the things that always amazes me, and specifically for this last year, is just how many layers there can be. You know, sometimes we think that I think today we like to have that quick fix. We want everything right now. And, you know, okay, when I do this, it's done. But it's never done.
Nope.
We're always evolving. So that notion to think that, you know, well, when I get there, but it's a journey. You're just going to continuously go. And I've had a lot of aha moments where I'm thinking, holy moly, I didn't think I could get any deeper. I didn't think that I could go there. And sometimes it can be a little bit challenging to sit with those uncomfortable thoughts, those uncomfortable feelings, because like you say, we're so used to doing the opposite, do, think, feel, be. And that feeling, we're not used to that uncomfortableness. So it's really, it's a paradigm shift, I think, when we really are open and realize that we're in the driver's seat of our lives. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because that's something that, like you said, most of us live on autopilot. What changes when you become the driver?
I know. And so once you wake up to the way reality is, which means that you are a creative being, so you will be offered invitations constantly to expand and grow and transform. You are asked, because life force is the quality of your self, you are animated by life, and there's nothing that stays the same in your body anyway. Everything changes. You will be asked over and over and over to go deeper and to become even more etheric. And so sometimes, yes, we have this feeling like, oh, maybe I should have stayed asleep because it seems like it was easier when I was ignorant. But what happens is
I love that.
there is a regret that happens. We know this from Bronnie Ware's work. with the dying is that the number one regret of people who are dying is, I wish I'd lived the life that was mine, a life that was mine. So that means to be awake. So once you're awake, you actually are met with these challenges, but they are always meant to bring you to the next phase of your incarnation. And I see it like a spiral opening upward. You will revisit the same pattern, but every time you'll be in a more expanded context. So when you're like, mother issues, I dealt with that in 2015. What's going on here? Well, you're just expanding your spiral, and now you're exploring mother issues in a very different context.
Oh my goodness. There's so much for us to talk about, and I think that we're going to have a bonus section here because we're out of time for today on Find Your Sparkle. But before we go for our audience today, can you tell us what makes you sparkle?
Oh, this makes me sparkle, Jennifer. Having deep, meaningful conversations with people who want to go deeper is definitely my favorite thing.
I absolutely love that. And I think you and I are going to be great friends. Thank you so much for being here. We are going to have a bonus section on the podcast and YouTube, so stay tuned for that. And thank you so much. Remember to go out and do something that makes you sparkle today and every day, friends. And you're listening to CIOE 97.5 FM. We'll catch you next time. Welcome to the bonus section with Anne. And we had such a great conversation that I feel like it's definitely important for us to continue so we can share some of this insight with our audience. I love when you're talking about awakening. That is huge for people who are curious about awakening and what that really means. Can you share?
Yes. Well, I think if you're wondering if you're awaken or not, I think that if you're listening to this interview and you understand anything about it, then you woke up. You woke up. You had a moment in your life. It could have been small, but it could have also been big, where you realized that there was more to life than what you were told. There was more to life than what you were taught in school and in the world around you. And you became incredibly curious about that reality that we're talking about. And so waking up to me means to remember who you really are. And that is a constant experience, a constant journey. So you can wake up multiple times in your life
That's for sure.
To the truth of who you are. But that first initial wake up call, for me, it was a smaller one when my grandmother passed away when I was 15. And I remember thinking, she's passed away, but I don't feel any different in our relationship. Our relationship is still very much intact. And then I started to talk to her and wonder about where she was. And I would feel her and I would hear her. That was when I was 15. But then, 15 years old and in the early 20s, you just kind of put all that to the side, especially if that wasn't supported when you were younger, this kind of thinking. And then for me, it was a big car accident. It was a wake-up call, huge wake-up call. But then smaller wake-up calls after that, because we tend to want to forget sometimes. It's so much easier to go along with everyone else. I mean, it seems easier, but at the end of the day, it's way more fulfilling and meaningful to not go along and to actually stop and just take a moment and then know that you can choose, you can decide which direction you're going to go and who you're going to surround yourself with, where you're going to listen to, and if you are or not going to answer the call of your curiosity of your soul.
I love that. And curiosity is a fabulous word. And I find that for me, with part of my own journey is I've become more curious. So when I have those, being more in tune with your body, when you start to feel a sensation that you think, oh, what's going on? And before I wouldn't have paid any attention. Then all of a sudden I'd feel nauseous. I'd be having anxiety. I'd have, an out of control, or, reactive rather than responsive to things. So to sit and have that, it takes practice, because you're not used to sitting with that uncomfortable thing. And we're so used to squash, 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 squash. And when we squash it, then we end up with this emotional baggage that keeps resurfacing. So if we don't deal with it, right? If we don't deal with it, we can pretend. And I think we play that psychological game with ourselves, because it's like, it's easier at the moment to think, okay, I don't want to deal with it, so I'm just going to squash it. But then you go to a meeting and something resurfaces, and it just comes back at you, and it keeps coming up until you take that time to acknowledge and actually feel what it is and let it go. Can you talk a little bit about your experiences with that, and how it's impacted, and how you can influence your clients?
Yes. Well, so it's normal to have the body react instinctively to what appears to be threats from the outside, right? So at the beginning, you don't catch yourself right away. You catch yourself later, right? You're like, oh, this morning I said that thing. I really shouldn't have said that. I wish I'd said something else. I wish I'd been more resourceful. And so what a good thing to do when that happens is to know that you can do something to help yourself catch yourself sooner next time. And that is to do this work inside yourself and build this relationship with the little child in you. So that little child that was hurt the first time, the second time, the third time, whether it was because of abuse or neglect or just trauma, we all go through all kinds of traumas, and then build this relationship and enter into a conversation with that hurt child. And that's easier said than done, right? Because the child is like, no, you've been ignoring me for years and years and years. I don't know if I can trust you. So often it is good to, have a friend or someone or a coach or someone to support you and just say, I'm here to listen. Or you can tell your friend or your partner, can you just hear me out loud? I don't need you to fix me. I just want to say this out loud. This is how I feel about what happened this morning with this person or whatever it is. And then allow the emotions to come. Just allow yourself, like you were the child, allow yourself to cry, allow yourself to weep, allow yourself to be angry. You're not projecting it onto that person, because you're acknowledging that it lives in you from the past. And just all that body movement of tears and shaking and even fire of anger, the next time you'll catch yourself sooner, because it's never about what it's about. It's never about what it's about. It's never about that person. It's never about your employer. It's never about your spouse. It's always about this relationship within yourself with what has happened to you. And so when you can soften the edges of that, then you soften the edges of your actual relationship in this time. Yeah.
I love that. And it's you reminded me when you were speaking that you have to be brave, because you really have to be, it's not for it's a commitment, and it can be, it's not always easy. It can be very, very challenging, but the more you do it, the easier it will become. I think it was Brene Brown who kind of was exactly what you're saying. The next time, maybe it's not, you don't get it at 100% right away, but the next time it's, maybe you're 3/4 through, and eventually you're going to start noticing, and it's not going to happen at all. It's a process, and, baby steps. I think that something else that popped up for me is sometimes we shy away from remembering that and wanting to remember that, because it's easier to blame something or someone outside of ourselves. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I catch myself every single time I am blaming someone, every single time. Even if the person did something like awful, if I'm out of my body and I'm in my head and I'm projecting outwards and I'm upset and I'm not feeling the feelings, I'm actually going through the stories of how this person did me wrong, then I know I'm not I'm not who I really am. I also have no access to creativity or to unconditional love, and I will go nowhere. This is a dead end. That will go
Yeah.
nowhere until, so it's up to me. Like, how long do I want it to last? Do I want to not talk to this person for 5 days? That sucks. That's suffering. That's not going to be fun, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I as soon as I feel it, I know, like, and anything, even my kids, like, I just catch myself and I don't blame myself. I actually love myself. I go in and I try to feel the sensations that are happening below my neck. What are the roots of this
Mm-hmm.
desire to come out of myself and blame? And usually it's shame or
Yes.
guilt. And that's why we don't want to look at it, because it feels ugly and dark, but it lives in us. We have to look at it. Nobody else is going to look at it and heal it for us. And so I go in, and then maybe I'll need a timeout to go and cry or yell or whatever, or allow myself to feel this at the sensation level, at the abstract level. So I'm not in the story. I'm not even in the thoughts about the feeling. I'm in the cramping in my belly. I'm in the heat in my heart. I'm in the
Mm-hmm.
knot behind my back. Like, I am in the difficult sensations of that emotion. And
And it
breathe.
takes,
And I breathe
oh,
deeply.
breathing. Oh my golly. You know what? Can you talk about breathing? Because that is so important. And I think that sometimes people don't realize that. I know my kids, I used to drive them crazy when they were little, because it would be like, okay, go do some breathing, deep breath in, and they would resist, and we would sit, and I would say, just 5, let's do 5, and
Yeah.
they would cringe, but years later you think, was that all for naught, or was it real? Did any of it rub off? And my son, one time when he was coming home, he was flying from Ottawa to Halifax, and he said, Mom, he said, just so you know, I do listen. I had to do some deep breathing on the plane because the lady beside me was very rude. So I thought, oh yay. So that's
Yeah.
fantastic. But yes, I'd love to
Yeah.
hear some your thoughts on breathing and how important it actually is.
Well, we know we can go many days without food and, you know, a few days without water, but really breath, air, not very long. And it is the element that allows us to live with a capital L, right? To fully live. And so when the trauma happens, or neglect or abuse in childhood, the first thing that goes is the breath becomes shallow, right? Because we go into fight or flight or freeze, and our breath becomes very shallow and short. And so to restore the breath when we feel the fight or flight coming back, that's what, when I go up in my head and I'm projecting and blaming, I'm in fight or flight. My whole body's
Mhm.
going, Mayday, Mayday, we remember this. You have to, we're going away from the shame emotion and we're going to blame someone outside of yourself. It's counter-instinctual to breathe deeply in that moment, but if you can make it a habit, eventually it becomes instinctual. So every time something intense happens around me, I don't know, maybe my husband and my daughter start to fight. Now, what I do every single time is, as soon as things get intense, anywhere, I'll see the news or
Yes.
some, and I start to feel my body. So deep breath in through the nose, and then we breathe out through the mouth. We drop the jaw and we constrict the throat a little bit to massage the vagus nerve, which goes around the brainstem and the throat and the heart and the lungs and then the stomach. That regulates your parasympathetic system. So when you constrict the throat a little bit, you tell your body it is safe, and you tell your body now something new can happen. Without safety, no transformation is possible. That is the first ingredient. So we can have all the intentions of doing everything we talked about today, but if we don't create a sense of safety inside ourselves, nothing can happen. And that can, for some people, that first sense of safety is meeting that for the first time, someone that loves them for who they really are. And sometimes that doesn't happen, right? But it's like meeting Wayne, right? There's a moment of, he just looks into your eyes, and for that minute that he's with you, you know who you are.
Oh my
right?
golly. Do you ever?
So the breath looks like this. So you reach for the in breath deep inside your belly. You allow your rib cage to open, your shoulders go back and down. And as you breathe out, you drop the jaw. Constrict the throat. And the exhalation is a little longer than the inhalation. If you do 3 of those, you're home. You're back home. And now we can talk. Now we can go somewhere.
And, I encourage everyone who's listening, if you've not worked with your breath, with taking deep breaths and focusing on just really breathing in deeply through your belly, your diaphragm, and like you say, exhaling a little bit longer, it makes the world of a difference. So if you're a non-believer, or if you find that you're a shallow breather, definitely try. Now, do you have any tips for people who are trying to learn to do deep breathing? Because I've had people that say they just can't do it. They can't do the deep breathing and make their stomach expand. And so if you have some tips, I would love to hear that.
Well, I think if someone has a hard time like expanding their belly sitting, I would just say lay down. Like, do not try to meditate or do breathing practices sitting up. Just allow yourself to be held by your bed or the grass, or the sand at the beach, whatever it is. But nature definitely would be an amazing holder of safety. And so and then lay down and allow yourself to bring your attention to your belly. And that's it. Just feel the breath in the belly. Don't force it. Just feel the breath in the belly. And that's it. And that's the beginning. You don't want to force things or push things. You want to take it slow. And as you bring your attention and start to just notice the sensations that are in your belly, even if it's gas. I remember the first time, like I realized I had an inner field and I could feel things as my belly started to make these sounds like air, and the people beside me, I'm like, oh, can they hear this? But it sounds so trivial, but it is. If you're here, you're in your head and you're always busy and you're always somewhere else in the present moment, you don't even know your stomach is doing these noises. So just sensing those noises, hearing the noises, but sensing the sensations of those noises, you're on your way, you're opening the door. And then little by little, just allow your belly to take a little bit more space. That's it. Just say, I give you permission to take as much space as you need. You want to talk to your belly with the kindness and gentleness you would talk to a child.
I love
you were
that.
The ideal mother.
Yeah, I do. I love that. And your own best friend. I mean, one of the things that I think that we're prone to is a lot of times we're not very nice to ourselves, and we're pretty nasty, and we can, I remember thinking, like, would you ever say the things that are going on in your head to your best friend or to, your child? And chances are not, but
No.
I mean, awareness, I think, is probably the biggest thing that we can, before anything happens, we have to become aware. So my self-talk, I'm pretty good now. I think, I've been working on this for a long time, but every now and again, you can still get sucked in. And it's like we were talking, you remember and forget. It's that, life is a series of remembering and forgetting. So that's okay. So give yourself grace, give yourself permission that, what, it's okay that I didn't remember this right now, but now I have. So we're good to go. It's like,
exactly.
It's an ongoing journey. And talking to yourself and talking to your body, there's been stigmas to that, but oh my golly, I talk to myself more now than I ever have in my whole entire life. And it's kind of, it's fun, really, because I get to explore. This whole journey is all about, wow, how did I not understand that about myself? Or how did I not realize it? It's, treasures and things that pop up all the time. And do you have similar experiences to that?
Absolutely. It's like I said earlier in the conversation, is that it's multi-dimensions. And so, first you start to notice the physical body and where different patterns from the past are living. And then you learn how to move them and process them through the cells and the nervous systems. And then next thing you know, you're in the energy body. And now you're discovering, oh, wow, the fire and the water and the air and the earth, how does that move through me? And wow, this is the essence of my energy body. It feels like this and it feels like that. And I feel like I'm more this and I'm more that. And then we go deeper even more. And then we're into the like higher consciousness in the I am body, which is beyond the elements. It's deeper and deeper. And there the communication is more subtle, but it is so powerful, and it is definitely very abstract. And so there's all these different dimensions and all these different layers of who we really are in this body. We are the universe, where the entirety of what we see outside is actually happening inside. This is just an illusion. So like you said, it's delicious and it's exciting to discover this temple. It's the whole world is right here inside myself.
Oh my golly, I absolutely love that. And I think that I love that people are becoming more aware and awakening. I guess that's I think that do you feel that? I mean, I feel that we're as a world and planet Earth, that we are awakening, and those things that, sages and ancient masters and teachers have known for millennia are now being proven by people like Bruce Lipton and Joe Dispenza and all the people that are doing all the epigenetics and Gregg Braden. I mean, it's just fascinating for me. How long I wish that we could, see how long it's going to take before everyone can really get it. It's like, that's like, oh my gosh, that's like the thing that it just excites me so much to know that we are, as a society and as a world, that we are awakening. And I love, that science is catching up to spirituality.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, I think that it's okay also when there's someone who doesn't want to awaken, right?
Yes.
Like it is, I think I'm seeing like this huge segment of the population who is saying yes to this journey. And then we're also seeing people who've made a decision, no, I can't go there. And that's okay. And it's all absolutely okay. And so I think the important thing is to have reverence for everybody's choices, but to double down on our commitment, because as we double down on our own commitment, the people outside of ourselves find who they are. That's as simple as that. Your presence is enough to remind someone of who they really are. And that cultivating that presence is a daily process, a daily task, but it's joyful.
Oh my goodness. And the ripple effect. I mean, sometimes we forget, wherever we go, we're bringing our energy, we're bringing who we are, and we're impacting people. It can make a huge difference. I can remember a few years ago, I like to do this assignment with my clients, or this challenge with my clients, with the smile challenge is just to smile and say hi to everyone that you see, and just watch people's reactions. And I remember reading a few years ago of this lady who basically was doing the same thing, and she was walking down a street, and I think it was in Detroit, and she came across this young man that was 18 that appeared to be homeless, and engaged, and just for whatever reason engaged in conversation. He later said he was pretty much ready to commit suicide, and that one interaction from a stranger who was showing him love, compassion, changed his life. So
Wow.
we never can underestimate the power of our energy, the power of our love, the power of our words, and just our action. And yeah, I think that really, I think it hits home for me that we can influence a lot of people.
Love is very contagious. And so you never know the seeds that you're planting when you're smiling, or when you are holding the door for someone, or just bringing your gaze to someone, letting them know you see them, that they're there, and that you value them. Sometimes someone might feel so hurt that they can't respond. But it's not our job to know if how the seed landed. You never know. Maybe it's going to reveal itself in a week or two or a couple years, and they'll remember that, and they'll know, yes, that's, you changed my life that day.
Yeah,
I'm responsible for how your seeds are, growing.
oh my God, that's so true. And I think that just being aware and constantly living your best life, and remembering that every day is a journey, and it's a decision and a choice every day with, how we decide to show up.
Yes, absolutely.
I know for me, I want to show up with more love and more light, more passion, purpose, and of course, sparkle. That's my goal. Is there anything else that jumps out for you that you would like to share today? I know I want to be mindful of your time, and I'm so appreciative that you were able to take some extra time with us today.
Well, I just really appreciate and am grateful for the work that you're doing, Jennifer, and that you're bringing so much light into the world. So thank you for that. And I always like to remind people to trust themselves. I think we've learned to trust other people and trust outside influences and opinions more than our own heart. And so, when in doubt, go into your heart. And even if your heart aches and you feel like it's not telling you the truth, it is. Your body never lies, never, never, never lies. And so trust yourself and see where that breadcrumb leads you. When you're awake and you're on the creative process of life, you don't know exactly where you're going. All you know is this moment. And so later you'll look at the breadcrumbs and go, oh yeah, this is where I was going. But in the moment, just trust that the no you need to say, or the yes that your heart wants to say, is the right breadcrumb to take you home and take you to where you want to go.
That is so important and relevant. And it makes me think, we have to have that trust and faith in, sometimes it's the unknown, but just when you're following it, and you have to be okay with the unknown sometimes, and not knowing, okay, when's it going to happen, or how is it going to happen, and trust. And that can be certainly a huge awakening for people too, because we're so used to having, controlling everything. So to put that out there, there was a quote you had in your book, something about the breadcrumbs. I'm trying to remember what it was here. Hang on, I think
it's probably something along the lines of just taking that one action in this moment that feels right, even though you don't know where it's leading you, that one day you'll look back and go, yes, I've been on the path all along. I just couldn't see where it was going. But the caterpillar, when it becomes a cocoon, when it's in the cocoon, it's goop. There's nothing. It's not even a caterpillar. It's not a butterfly. And we often find ourselves in those places where we have no clue. It is the unknown. But the best thing we can do is trust that life is for us, that the universe is on our side, that we're not going to be dropped in those moments. This just doesn't happen. We are always led and pushed and propelled by life force. So there's always an intelligence for everything that happens.
I could not agree more. And certainly there are always a lot of lessons to be learned as well. And I have one more quick story I need to share, because it popped in my head, so I felt like I have to. When you were talking a moment ago with the course of your life, I remember I broke my back when I was 19, and the doctor, and listening to those outside forces, had I listened to what the doctor said, I wouldn't be sitting here today, because he told me I would never have children, I would never play sports, and I was going to have a hunchback. But I knew that was not going to be the life that I had for me. And
wow.
I often think, what if I had listened to him? And how many people out there listen to the experts rather than trusting themselves and their own intuition, their own body. And it kind of makes it a bit sad, but I thank God every single day that, you know, I had that inner knowing and that drive that was not going to be my future. And obviously I don't have a hunchback and I'm proud to say I have 2 biological children. So that's, you know, that's
amazing.
but you never know. So I think that there's, you know, there's always hope. There's always, we have a lot more, I think we can certainly manage our lives a lot more than what we sometimes do.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that knowing is key. When your mind is informed by that knowing, your mind is brilliant. Your ego is brilliant when it is informed by your heart. So it's a servant to the heart, to that knowing you're talking about. And so when that is true beyond any doubt, then you follow it. You follow it, and then you let the good opinions of other people go by.
Absolutely. Well, it has been such a pleasure getting to have this conversation. It's been, I absolutely love it. And I would love to stay in touch. And I think it would be absolutely lovely to maybe have some other conversations down the road.
Sounds good. I look forward to that, Jennifer. Thank you for having me today.
Thank you. It has been my pleasure, and we will hopefully be in contact soon. And thank you again. Bye, everyone. And remember to go do something that makes you sparkle today and every day. Bye for now, friends.